Hello, everyone. I would like to give you my warm welcome to BAASS Connect Virtual 2020. My name is Pierre-Luc Allard, and I've been with BAASS Business Solutions for about 2 years now. And today we'll be talking about BAASS Bridge Salesforce. So BAASS Bridge Salesforce is an application that communicates data between Salesforce to Sage 300 or Sage 300 to Salesforce. So what I'm going to do now is just remove my camera so we can have focus at the demo. So just let me do this here. Perfect. So as you can see here, this is the Salesforce Bridge application. And it's pretty simple just by looking at it. We have a process button here that processes the data. And then we have a select company section here, which I'll explain a little bit later. So the first thing that we'll be looking at is the settings for this application. So I'm just going to go on Files here and do Settings. So what you see here is just a bunch of data that you need to set up in order for the application to work. So I'm just going to briefly go through all of them. So the first one is the Sage 300 settings. So this is just the login that you need to do for us to get the data from Sage 300 or to send the data. And then we have the Salesforce API settings. And this is what we need to get the data and send the data from Salesforce. So we do that through an API. And here, the last value that you see here is last process. So this gives us the date of the last time this application was processed. And every time we click the process button, it fetched the data from this date to the current date. And then we have the Sage processing. And these are all default values that you need in order for transferring the data. So it would be like data that can't be obtained on one entity, basically. So for example, the customer price book here. So when we create a customer inside Sage 300, the default price book PLA prices would be selected for the customer. And then we have the email settings. I didn't apply my settings here for this one, but if you would have any errors during the process or anything like that, we would send an email to you just to give you a warning that there was an error with the process. So if we go on the other tab here, we have the databases. So here on the right, we have the Sage 300 database set up. So this is the way that we connect to Sage 300. And then we have the staging tables database. So this is a database that we use to maintain the data between both applications. And then when we go on the modules, here you can see all the modules that we can transfer the data to. So we can transfer data from Sage 300 to Salesforce, or from Salesforce to Sage 300. So we have the customers, contract, items, invoices, orders, and price list. We could always add more things here. We're always open to add more data in here, but these are the ones that we have programmed at the moment. So for this demo, we'll be looking at creating customers, contracts, and orders. Now, before I click the Save button here, I just want to show you the top section here. So we have the Select Company. Right now, I have my BAASS Bridge selected, but if for some reason you would have multiple Salesforce entities, so for example, you'd have a Salesforce website from the UK, and you want it to be transferred on a UK Sage 300 entity. So what you can do here is click the New Company, and then you would be able to create some new settings for this other transfer of data. And when you press the process button, it will process all of these companies at the same time, unless you uncheck this enable checkbox here, which would avoid from being transferred if you do that. So I'm just going to click Save here. So the next thing I'd like to show you here is just the mapping section. I'm just going to click here, and bear with me, it's just going to take a few seconds to load. Okay, so what you see here is actually all of the fields from Sage 300. So here we have all of the tabs of the modules that we've selected: customers, contract, order, and order detail. And then, so on my customer tab, these are all of the values from my customer in Sage 300. And then in Salesforce, you can select the field that you would like to map it to. So let's say I would like to map this field here I would just need to click the combo box here. And now you can see all of the fields from Salesforce. And if you hover on all of these fields, you actually see a little description to explain exactly what those fields are. But as you can see here, I just have a few things mapped already just for this demo. So we have the country linked with the billing country, postal code, state. And then we have some mandatory fields that need to be mapped, just for like the customer number, for example, because this is the unique identification that we'll use to figure out which customer already exists or not. And then we have like the customer name and bill city. And this is the same for the contract. We have a few things mapped, the orders, and so on and so forth. So now that we have taken a look into the settings and the mapping, we're going to go ahead and process some data inside from Sage 300 to Salesforce. So the first thing that I need to do is go in Sage 300 and create a customer, contract, and an order for all of them to be linked together. So I'm just going to click customer here. And I'm going to create a new customer. And we'll call it Remington Jones. And we'll make this customer barebone. We're not going to put a lot of information there, but we'll put the mandatory fields like the group code. And then in the city, I'm just going to put Toronto, Canada, Ontario, just a random postal code. There you go. And I also have to map my tax groups. So I'm just going to put Ontario in here. There you go. So I got my customer created. I'm just going to save this and close. So now I'm just going to create a contract. Now, the reason why I've implemented the contract in this demo is because inside Salesforce, you are required to link the contract when creating an order. So that's the situation here where we're going to create a contract and it's going to be linked to that order. So I'm just going to create a contract here, called this, and call it demo contract. Oops. And we're going to link it to our new customer called Remington Jones. And just put a random account. And we're going to put the status to open here. And of course, a contract is a little bit more complicated than that. You need to add projects and so on and so forth. But we'll make this one simple here and just put a project end date to December 24th. There you go. All right, so we have our customer and our contract. So now let's go ahead and create an order. Okay, so for my new order, I'm just going to assign Remington Jones again on this. And for the item, I'm going to use an item that's already inside Salesforce. But in the situation where the item wouldn't exist and would only exist in Sage, there wouldn't be any issue to insert this item, and it would be created at the same time as doing the order. So let me just find this item here. There you go. So I'm adding barbecue chicken for this one here. And I'm going to give it a quantity of 10. And they're $5 each. So I'm going to post this here. Okay, so all of my things are created here now. So let's go back into the Salesforce bridge. So I'm going to click on the process button. And what this is going to do, it's going to detect that there's been new information created inside Sage 300, and it's going to insert them inside Salesforce. So let's just go ahead and do that. So as you can see, this was pretty fast just because there wasn't a lot of data in there. But just to have a quick look, here it's reading 5 customers into the staging tables because it has detected that there's been a few customers that has changed. And then we have the one contract that we've created, and then the order. So after detecting these information, it's going ahead and processing these information inside Salesforce. So we've processed those 5 customers, we've created contract number 6, and then we've created order 71. So now we're going to have a look at our result inside Salesforce. So let me just log in here. And the first thing that we're going to do is look at our accounts, which is the customer in our case. So as you can see, we got Remington Jones that's been created. And in the details, you'll see that the fields that I've mapped, which is a city, province, and such, has been created here also. And now if we look at our orders, so you can see my new order that's been created here, order 71, which has Remington Jones, the new account that's been created. And if I have a quick look here, you can see that I have my barbecue chicken that's been created with the quantity of 10 and a unit price of 5. And the new contract number has also been created here. So if I go in detail, you can see that my contract here is the new contract that I've created. So now that we've created data from Sage 300 to Salesforce, we're going to go ahead and change data inside Salesforce so it can be transferred inside Sage 300. So what I'm going to do here is just say that Remington Jones' address has changed. So we're going to change her address. And now she lives in Ottawa. And we're just going to put another random postal code here. There you go. So what we need to do now inside Salesforce is go in settings, in my modules, and we want to transfer Salesforce data to Sage 300. So I'm just going to uncheck these here and just add the customer, just because in this case, we only change the customer. So this is all we need. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to hit process to do the process. So as you can see here, it read 5 accounts because when we did the Sage 300 to Salesforce, it actually modified these 5 accounts. So it's still detecting them and it's still changing them, and it's been processed inside Sage. So if we look inside Sage right now and look at our customer in AR customer, and have a look at Remington, which is right here. So now you can see that the city has been changed to Ottawa, and the postal code is E1A3M3. So that's pretty much it. So in my example, you've seen that I transferred data from, whoops, just getting back here. Okay, transfer data from Sage 300 to Salesforce, but it can do exactly the opposite. You could create invoices, orders, items, and such inside Salesforce, so it can be transferred inside Sage 300. Now here we have the button that you need to press every time, but it doesn't need to be like that. We also have an automated system that let you do the process automatically every hour, every day, every week, depending on what you've liked. So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for Sage 300 Bridge to Salesforce, and I hope you have a good understanding on how it works. So we have some time for some questions if there's any around this application here.
I do have some questions here.
Yes.
And if anyone has a question, also just a reminder to type it within the question box. First question I have is, does Salesforce Bridge work with Sage Intacct?
Good question. So Salesforce Bridge doesn't work with Sage Intacct at the moment, but we do have other applications that works with Intacct. So we do have the knowledge to do it. If it's ever requested, it's something that we can do.
I have multiple Salesforce websites and would like to have the data transferred in separate Sage 300 entities. Can the bridge manage that?
So yeah, so the bridge can absolutely manage that. So the way you would do that, the way that you would do that is go in settings. And like I mentioned, you would need to click the new company here. And you could select any company that you would like to have here. You can have 10 companies or no matter how many, it would work.
I'm using a different online shop. In this case, they're using Wix. Can it be connected to transfer data with Sage 300?
Yeah, so we don't have an application with Wix at the moment, but as long as the application have a web API or any kind of way that we can fetch the data from that application, we can create a custom application with that with our system. So if you ever need to know something, if you ever need a specific application, we can look into it. All you need to do is just go in the contact us section inside the BAASS website and just let us know what kind of application you would like us to create for you, and we can have a look for sure.
The mapping of the field seems complicated. Will I get help in setting this up?
Absolutely. So during our first installation of the application, we could help you out with the mapping of these values. And after it's been mapped, there's not really any reason to go back into the mapping. It's mostly just a one-time setup. So unless you need new values to be mapped.
Are there measures taken to make sure that there's no duplicate data from one system to another?
Absolutely, yes. So in our setting here, when I explain the databases, the staging tables database takes care of that. So what this database do is just manage the whole data. So if there's ever anything that's similar, so let's say we have our customer ID that's the same. This database here just makes sure that it's always the same ID that's being inserted or updated in there.
Perfect. And I see here that Joe just wanted to touch on the Sage Intacct question.
Okay.
Yeah, just further to what Pierre-Luc mentioned, for Sage Intacct and Salesforce, there is a module that Sage Intacct sells for integration between Sage Intacct and Salesforce. But in addition to that particular integration, the CRM group has also prepared an integration where you want additional touch points or additional integration points between Salesforce and Intacct. So besides the one that's the Sage Intacct sells, we've also added to that particular module and expanded the integration points. So that's for the individual that asked that question. We'll follow up and give you some more information. Thank you.